I have two iconic people here with me on stage, Parmesh Shahani and Apsara Reddy. Both of them have broken barriers that all of us cannot even think about and reached where they have today. They are indeed a role model for all the millennials and a huge inspiration to each one of us here. I'm going to let them tell you their story. Let's start with Parmesh. If you can tell us a little bit about your journey.
Thank you so much, and I want to thank everyone at the Ooty Lit Fest to start with. You, Arun, the entire team, Jerry for inviting me here. So many friends here in the audience, including especially Dina. Sorry for calling you out. My therapist, Dina, who, if people don't know, is the best therapist in the Nilgiris, so Ooty Kunur. So thank you so much. Well, for the whole journey, you'll have to buy the book, which is outside. So hashtag like soft sell. But in a in a nutshell, what I want to tell you about is, unlike many other people, when they talk about LGBTQ identity, many of them talk about struggles, overcoming it in various different ways and challenges. My struggles were not personal in the sense that, so when I came out to my mom, it wasn't like Kiran Kheren Dostana or something saying, hey Bhagwan, and then wanting you to do a whole bunch of either treatments or conversion and all, which is sadly the reality of so many queer people in our country. When I told my mom I'm gay, her response was, well, okay, that's fine, what should we have for dinner? Which, quite frankly, was anticlimactic because that built it up to the point, right? So despite the privilege of having accepting parents and so on, I still was regularly bullied, tormented, and found it very hard to grow up because the systems, the structures, and the institutions I were part of were not queer-friendly. And hence, my journey has been first in finding and then helping build systems, structures, and institutions that promote inclusion for other LGBTQ and actually for people of various marginal backgrounds and identities to flourish as well. One of these was when I went abroad to a place like MIT to study, where in India, where I thought, for me to succeed, I had to hide and suppress my sexuality. But strangely enough, in a place like, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, it seems they were waiting for me. I'm very Bollywood, so I'll use Bollywood references. And, like Jaya Bachchan in Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gham, when Shah Rukh lands from the, from the helicopter, how she does the aarti and the music play. I felt like Boston was waiting for me like that. It was like, come gay person, come, you're welcome here. The institution was so friendly. The vice principal called me to her room and she said, I believe you want to do something. Here's funding. Funding for a queer event? Wow. Here's a list of people. They took us on queer, there were professors who were queer friendly, policies were queer friendly. Companies like Boston Consulting Group, Bain and so on, would reach out to the LGBTQ association and say, we want to hire your queer students. Imagine being wanted because of being queer. Whereas my whole life I had felt rejected because of being queer, right? So that made me realize that when your institution can support you, it can really become the wind beneath your wings and it can help you fly. And likewise, then many years later, I've worked at Godrej for many years, where we tried very hard to make Godrej that kind of institution. Now, so my journey has been one of, in a sense, in a nutshell, this, articulating my queer identity to myself, understanding that we live in a society in which there is a ridiculous, unnecessary, unwarranted discrimination. I mean, how can you discriminate against someone because of who they are? But, that's the nature of the world we live in. And then figure out ways in which we can help change some of these systems and structures so that the future generations of queer people and otherwise can be empowered in these spaces that can flourish as well. And that's what I'm trying to do, in my work right now, in the lab that we are building for equity and inclusion, and certainly through the book. That's been the central message of the book.
Thank you, Parmesh. Even over the last few years, we have noticed a distinct change in people's perceptions and thoughts about the LGBTQ community. In the meantime, Apsara, can you tell us something about your journey? Apsara was handpicked by Ms. Jayalalitha to enter politics, and she is perhaps the first transgender woman in the country, or maybe, I don't know, in the world, a politician, and she's made such a huge impact. Apsara, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Ooty Literature Festival, for giving diverse voices a chance to be heard. And I think also through this, I think there's a democracy supposed to celebrate the diversity. And I think it starts with organizers like OLF who bring the democracy alive by adding a dimension to society and giving us a chance to flourish. So thank you. A big round of applause for OLF. So the question was about my childhood or my experiences. What was it? Okay. So I was born a boy. I felt wrong in the male body, very, very young. It is very difficult to first come to terms with it yourself because I wanted to be a woman. I didn't feel homosexual or gay, and I didn't know how to relate it. It was very, very young. And my parents didn't come from a background where they had the exposure or the education to understand it. But when I did come out, I was at teenage, and I did come out to my parents, and of course, there's this huge panic and pandemonium, emotional stress and all of that. But then I very, very clearly knew that I wasn't doing something wrong. Everybody is God's child, and there will be a meaningful place for me. So I was very confident and very honest about who I wanted to be. I never tried to brush it under the carpet. I never really tried to live a fake life or a sham life. I was very fortunate that I found extremely good mentors of course, I went to a counselor, I put my parents through counseling, and being from a South Indian conservative family, a lot of people have more opinions about your life than yourself. And everybody is willing to second guess your intentions. Like, she wants to do it for this, or she wants to do it for that. And for me, I was very clear, I wanted to do it for myself. It was not about being attractive, it wasn't about cosmetic, I felt like a woman emotionally and mentally. And my mental makeup and emotional intelligence was that of a woman. So I kind of articulated those feelings to my parents, and we went and met a really scary person in Hyderabad who was a gender therapist who basically told me, you'll get stoned to death, or the easy answer is to go marry a girl. I was like, I'm a teenager. Why are we talking about marriage? I want to be a woman. So then we found help through another really, one of my closest, one of the most celebrated endocrinologists in the world called Dr. Usha Sriram, who works between Chicago and Chennai. And she was a bridge between my parents and myself who kind of made the process quite easy. I wouldn't talk about the struggles so much because without those struggles or without those conversations, I wouldn't be where I am. And I didn't want to rebel. I didn't want to run away from home. I didn't want to, it's easy to run away from home, live with your friends and dress up the way you want and do what you want. I wanted my parents to be with me on the journey because nothing beats the validation of family and having family with you. Of course, there will be relatives, there'll be extended family who will have all kinds of things to say. But the very same people, trust me, come around. And they celebrate your successes as much as your parents would. So I never gave up on my dreams or my beliefs. There were people like, of course, when I went to school and college, my educators, my teachers, were very, very understanding. When I was studying in Australia or London, when I was doing my broadcasting, all my professors were extremely helpful. Of course, Mr. Amit Shah recognized me from my writing and gave me an award for Women's Day, and I said I will accept it only because you're saying it's Women's Day, because my journey is towards womanhood. So he invited me in 2016 for lunch in Chennai and gave me an award at a ceremony, and then that's how my journey began. And I think we'll talk about the career part of it later, but this has been my journey so far, and I have zero regrets, and I have no fear in my DNA.
Fantastic, Apsara. Okay, Parmesh, all of us here, or most of us here in the room, are always confused about the range of the LGBTQI++.
I am confused too. You have to educate us because...
So please educate us on what these different facets are. What is gender? How is it different from sex? What is sexuality and identity? You know, so we really need to understand this from you. And why the use of different pronouns for each of these. So
Chalo,
it's
a full chapter in the book, but we will condense it in like 5 minutes or something. A very, very quick cliff note or like guide for studies and all of that. But the truth is, the best way to learn is to go out and engage with the community. And we're at a lit fest. Actually, at this moment, there are about 250 books that are out there in the world about being LGBTQ in the Indian context as well. So I plead with you, go read. There are incredible autobiographies, there are incredible memoirs, there are incredible stories of fiction. There are incredible, fantasy novels. There's incredible academic work, right? So if to understand, for example, where Indian LGBTQ identities are rooted. There's Ruth Vanita and Salim Kidwai's magnificent historical book called Same-Sex Love in India, and Salim Kidwai ji, of course, passed away last year. But we have this huge legacy of literature that we have access to, so please read, since we are at Lit Fest. If you can't read, please see, there is a range of now narratives about us with Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hotstar, whatever you do. It's not just serials or stories about queer characters. There's also queer people popping up randomly in, like, say, a Sushmita Sen Arya. Suddenly the policeman will be gay or whatever, right? So it's actually quite interesting to see how many queer narratives are coming out. But to answer this specific question, so I think there's a very simple way of looking at it. Sex is the organ that you are born with. So when you're born, the doctor looks at you and says, like, they look at your genitalia and they assign you a sex. So if we have to do simply, sex is kind of down here. Okay? Gender is what you feel. So as Apsara said, I was born in a male body, but I felt very much that I'm a woman. So gender is here. Gender is in your mind. Okay? Gender is what you feel very much inside and so on, right? Sexuality in that sense is heart, like who you love, who you desire, who you want to be with, romantically, sexually, who you imagine yourself with, at all of that, right? So, and our identities are at intersections of all of these various things, right? So if you're born with, say, the doctor says male organs, then they assign you as male, female likewise, but then some people are born intersex with indeterminate sex organs, and actually can we just clap and celebrate Tamil Nadu, because it's such a progressive government in terms of it's the only state to have banned intersex surgery. It has some of the most progressive LGBTQ and trans rights and all kinds. So can we just clap for how amazing we are to be in a state? Because there are so many other states in which, and it's quite cruel to perform surgery on infants and babies until they themselves decide and so on, right? So, I mean, so that's sex. Gender can be anything, and there's a range as well. It's what you feel as well. Trans is when you if you're born in a particular body but you feel you belong to other gender, then it's transgender. So Apsara, you identify as transgender? Yeah. And even within that, now there are so many other terms. There's pangender, there's so on as well. Sexuality is who you desire, right? In that, if you are, say, male and you desire someone else who's male, it's homosexual. If you're male, you desire someone who's female, it's heterosexual. If you're male and you desire both, it's bisexual, right? There are many people who might want loving and wonderful connections with others, but they're not attracted to them sexually. That is asexual. So like that, there's a range of possibilities for all of us, not just for LGBTQ people, also for straight people as well. And I keep on getting a lot of questions. As you said, what are all these terms? If we can remember all the characters and say, if we can remember Kattappa ne Bahubali ko kyun mara, if we can remember characters in Pokemon, if we can remember, all the serials that we watch and the stories that happen, I mean, surely we can remember a few terms that matter to all of us, especially when they matter to our deep parts of our lives and of our children's lives. So pronouns and all is something that many people are, especially younger generations, are very concerned about, because they are like, you need to address me in the way that I want to be addressed as, right? So if your gender identity conforms, to say the sex that you're born with. So for example, I'm male, I'm homosexual, but I'm male and I'm what is called cishet. I'm cis, not cishet. I'm cis gay male, which means that my gender identity conforms to the sex I was assigned as birth. Then I can say my pronouns are he, him. Right? If you're female and you feel like the sex that was assigned to you at birth is what you feel, you could be she, her. But if you wish to, many trans people prefer to use a wider pronoun. Actually, many non-trans people also and heterosexual people might say, I don't want to belong to either he, her, or he, him, or she, her. Use a wider pronoun called they, them, which is a more inclusive pronoun. So, and I suppose in Hindi, an equivalent would be aap, which is a plural way of addressing people, in plural with respect. Is there a Tamil version of up? I don't know. But yeah.
I'm really not aware of these terms, so
Yeah.
I'll leave it to you.
Yeah. But again, so these are just simple ways of addressing. The best way to do when you meet anyone is say, hi, my name is so-and-so and my pronouns are so-and-so, just so that they know how to address you. It's as simple as that. It's not rocket science. So queer is many things. It's a wide, embracing term which can subsume all these identities. It's like a holding term for all these identities. But it's also, that's queer in terms of its sexuality origins. Queer is also a political term that stands for anyone who kind of doesn't conform to the norm, who doesn't believe that because this is the way things have always been done, things should continue. Anyone who imagines and works towards creating a more wider, more inclusive world is queer. So in that sense, let's do a poll. How many in this room are queer? Aren't we all queer because we all want to imagine a better world and all? So you can say that you're queer even if you're heterosexual and so on. And actually, I urge all of you to go ahead and do the same, because that's only when you yourself feel that you are part. So LGBTQIA, the A also stands for ally. So how many of you are allies to the LGBTQI community? And all those who are not raising their hands, we'll get you there.
What's intersex?
So intersex, as I just explained, is when you're born with, it's a chromosome thing. A small percentage of people are born with either indeterminate sex organs or chromosomal patterns which don't conform to either male or female.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's like a crash course in terms.
Thank you so much. Okay, Apsara. So being who you are should be solely decided by you. Okay, and you have certainly done that without playing to the galleries. Tell us something about that.
See, I deep down felt like a woman, and it wasn't a drama that the world had to consume. I needed to find a meaningful place under the sun, and I needed my parents on the journey, and that was the most important validation. So for me, opinions, suggestions, criticism didn't really matter. People said harsh, baseless, cruel things. People assumed a lot. But I very well knew that for me to kind of stand on firm ground, it's my education, it's my career, it's my family, it's my inner circle. It really didn't matter to me what anybody else thought. Luckily, I had my mother in on the journey with me, and I had really good mentors. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Parmesh, you've been talking about queer literature. Tell us a little bit about how queer literature has really empowered the LGBT movement in our country.
So I think queer literature empowers everyone. That's the thing about being a lit fest and reading books, right? Books are portals to other worlds, other universes. You imagine, you can see, you can hear, you can be part of so many different narratives and stories, and through that you grow. And you realize that how wonderful differences are, because differences are what make us unique. I think ultimately through literature as well and books, you realize that how common we are, how our commonalities are so much more than the differences between us. So I think, and stories in general, not just books, right? Storytelling itself is so powerful. Even what we are doing right now is we're doing oral storytelling. Right. It's ways of connecting to others, finding that commonality between us and others as well. And I think for years, because of the way publishing, because of the way gatekeeping occurs, because of the way people imagine audiences, the truth is that LGBTQIA people are 6 to 10% of any population. So is anyone good in math? Because what is our population right now? 1.4, no, I think. So 1.5. So what is 10% of 1.5? 150 million. That is, chalo, not 10%. Let's assume 6%. 80 or 90. So there is an audience of 80 or 90 million queer people already existing in this country, right? So for many years, the books that we were getting were not serving this. All the books that we were receiving. So it's just over the years, people who publish books have realized that. People who write books, many more people from queer communities have started writing books. And there has been now this abundance and this renaissance of queer writing as well across many fields. I spoke about, some of the genres earlier. What excites me most are voices that are, so there's Maya Sharma's book, for example, Loving Women, which was her first book, and now Footprints, which is her second book, both of which talk about being lesbian in rural Gujarat. Again, incredible stories. The first is more about being lesbian. The second is mostly about trans men in rural Gujarat as well. Incredible journeys that we go on, because when we imagine, again, when we imagine rural India in inverted commas, we imagine, we perhaps do not imagine queerness existing in these spaces as well, right? So there are now so many books. I mean, there are so many autobiographies as well, whether it's Akai Padmashali's, whether it's Manjama Joka. There's so many trans autobiographies in which we learn about the journeys and the struggle. There are fantasy books. I just read a book with a queer superhero, which was great fun, Zorian Cross, incredibly cool. A gay superhero who destroys demons and all of that, great fun as well. I've read young adult queer books, Payal Dhar, It Has No Name, set suspiciously in a school in a mountainous hill station that sounds a lot like Ooty but may or may not be. Very interesting. So there are so many stories about us. There are stories about queer couples. There are stories of alternative queer families, and the same we are seeing in the storytelling across, whether it's in web series. Again, here I want to add and say that it's not just popular. Like in Queeristan, one of the best, one of my favorite narratives is, there's a Kannada web series called Not Another Love Story. Has anyone seen it? It's very popular on YouTube, right? It's about two girls in the 90s in Karnataka who fall in love. So it's the 90s, it's pre-mobile, their sweet love story. It became very popular. So one of my characters in my book, Kusuma, who I interview, when she comes out to her mom doesn't understand all of this, right? But she shows her mom this Kannada web series, and her mom is obsessed. And she sees it, she gets it, she's like, this is so cool. And now where they are is, Kusuma and her girlfriend come over on weekends, stay with the mom. They're all watching TV together and cooking together and one big happy family, right? So I'm saying that's the power of stories as well, right? They help us, connect and unite. Was that a whistle? I love it. Keep it up. One copy of Queeristan to whoever whistles next.
Oh, another one. You're going to be sold out.
But I mean, again, it's amazing, right? That we have all of these stories. Yeah. I mean, I urge the festival organizers, bring in so many more queer voices in English, voices in other languages. There is a flourishing of queer narratives across. And it will benefit not just queer people who see ourselves in these stories and who feel proud, but everyone else who will be so enriched with all that we have to offer. Because to me, queerness is, we said earlier, it's an umbrella term, it's a political term. It's also, as I touched upon, it's a way of imagining. So the other title of Queeristan was, Other Worlds Are Possible. And then it was a mouthful, and my publisher said, it won't be hashtagable, so we called it Queeristan. But really, queerness is a way that I think queer people can teach straight people of imagining beautiful, multiple, alternative possibilities for their lives to improve and flourish. So which is why I think we need, to shine a spotlight on more and more queer literature.
Super. Okay, Apsara, you were invited by the European Parliament to speak. Can you share your experiences there and how it happened, and also your entry into politics, mainstream politics, how you made a place for yourself under the sun there? Difficult of that.
So politics was never really something of course I followed politics, but I never really knew that there would be space for me in the political turf. As a journalist, I was invited by a television network to do a chat show with celebrities. So while I was doing that television show, for Women's Day, as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Amit Shah and a couple of BJP leaders were doing a Women's Day event in Chennai, and they wanted to award me along with educationists, doctors, manufacturers. They said, we want to award you as a woman trailblazing journalist. And I said, I'd be happy to take that award. And once that award was given to me, it was published in the Times of India the next day that I have joined the BJP. Which was not true. I just accepted the award. I had lunch with Mr. Amit Shah, great conversation, but I have never joined the BJP. And I'm not getting political here. So I didn't join the BJP.
But it's politics, never say never.
So I had reissued a statement saying I didn't join the party, but I'm very thankful to Mr. Modi and Mr. Amit Shah for recognizing a trans woman the way in which they did. And then I was on a flight to Madurai or somewhere, I think a couple of weeks later, and there was somebody who spotted me and said, Madam Jayalalitha would love to meet you. And I said, it's really random. You could have called me on a flight, you've sat next to me and you said, Madam Jayalalitha wants to meet you. I'd love to because I'm a huge fan of hers. And nothing happened after that. For 3-4 months, nothing happened. But I got a call saying that, would you like to join the party? And we will facilitate it. I said, of course, if it's AIDMK, if it's Madam Jayalalitha, I'm more than game to join the party. They gave me a date. And a day before I was supposed to join, I get a call from the same gentleman saying, I'm actually nervous because MGR or Madam Jayalalitha have never met a trans woman on stage and honored them with a posting or a position or anything. You can give a missed call to a toll-free number and get your identity card. I was like, you know, I didn't ask to join. You invited us. And then now you're saying I have to give a missed call to a toll-free. I'm not interested. But sure enough, at about 11:30 at night, I got a call again saying that Madam Jayalalitha would like to meet you and we've discussed your profile with her and she wants you to join the party. So when I did agree and they booked my tickets and I went to this place, there were 35 lakh people in the public meeting. And just before her helicopter arrives, which is like 2 hours before, you get instructions that you have to close your mouth and speak to her. You have to touch her feet and just say thank you and nothing more. And they were very, very rude. The people who treated me in the party were like, you can't sit here, go back. They changed my seating 14 times. And the way in which they spoke to me was absolutely derogatory, insulting. But I wasn't going to let them wish me away. I knew that I've come this far. I'm going to see what comes, and I'm not going to shed a tear. I'm going to face whatever comes with fortitude. I sat there. I kept moving. Of course, they moved me to the last chair under the shamiana. And when she arrived, they said, now you have to go up the stairs and just touch her feet and all those instructions. But sure enough, I was so nervous. There was so much of lights and music and people screaming, Tangat Talavi, Tangat Tarage Purachi Talavi. I completely forgot the instructions. I stood up straight. In fact, if you look at the photograph, she'll bend down to talk to me. I'll be standing. I just said, thank you, ma'am, for making space for a woman like me. She tapped me on the shoulder thrice and said, do good work. Welcome to the party. Already, a security guard put his hand on my stomach saying, okay, you've spoken enough, now move back. Then she told him in Tamil, she said, Talla Dinga, don't push her. Let her be on stage till my helicopter leaves because there'll be a stampede. So put her back in her car and send her home. And after I joined, and she announced me as the official national spokesperson for English channels for the party, and she said, you will represent the party on English news channels. And I went to thank her later on, and then she said, I would love to get trans women married. I do mass marriages for people. Why don't you come up with a policy where we can also help trans women find partners, and I will get them married in a ceremony. And I actually gave her a proposal as well, which she signed a GO and allocated funding, but sure enough, she fell sick and went to the hospital. It was a proposal where I said, I want to start something called the tea shop. T for transgender, T for third gender, T for milk tea as well. In every corporation or municipal limit to have a kiosk where we provide sustainable employment for women in that area with corporate and of course government sponsorship, where trans women can get sustainable employment. Because a lot of times people say, why do trans women beg? Why do trans women curse? Why do trans women behave the way they do? I want to bring to your attention when kids come out as trans individuals, when parents ostracize you and throw you on the streets, you're 15, 14, 16, 17 years, and you're on the streets. You have to feed yourself. You have no education. You don't get a job. And to feed yourself, you're exposed to all kinds of elements and social, anti-social elements. You're prone to sexual violence. You're prone to abuse. So what else do they do apart from prostitution and begging? So instead of giving them the 500 you do, or instead of giving them arms, I think you should actually send them for a spoken English class, send them for a tailoring unit, a workshop. See if your companies can employ them after training them. I think sustainable employment and sustainable livelihoods is the only way forward for empowerment for trans individuals, because I feel a lot of people operate from sympathy and pity. I think that's the last thing we need. I think you need to see us for our merits as equals and see what opportunities you can create for our trans individuals. And that's how I entered politics, and that's why I want to make a change in politics. In fact, so when Madam Jayalalitha passed away, there was a lot of musical chairs in Tamil Nadu, as all of you know. There was a lot of who was the heir to AIDMK, and there was a lot of, and I didn't want to speak badly about anybody because I had worked with Madam Sashikala, with Madam Jayalalitha, with Mr. OPS, with Mr. EPS. The whole gamut were colleagues of mine, and I would meet them very often. So I didn't want to get into the mudslinging. So I took a break and I wanted to make a documentary about child molesters. So I got permission from the Commissioner of Police and I made a documentary from South India's most notorious prison called Pural Central Prison. I went in, I made a documentary on the mindsets of child molesters and why death penalty is the only answer for child molesters. And that documentary was released by the vice chancellors of 2 universities, the Commissioner of Police and the Health Secretary. And when the documentary was released, I don't know how that documentary went and landed on the table of Mamata Banerjee. So Madam Mamata Banerjee saw the documentary and invited me for a conference in Kolkata. And after the conference, I got out of my Kanjivaram sari and I was sitting in my cord set by the swimming pool having a coffee. And somebody from Rahul Gandhiji's office, an MP called Sushmita Dev, and I'm very, very thankful to her. She's a former union minister's daughter. She's also a Rajya Sabha MP now. She's moved from the Congress to TMC. She spotted me at the swimming pool and she said, listen, you're on your way out from AIDMK and you spoke very well. Why don't you meet Rahulji? Why don't you do something with national politics? And I said, for me, Jayalalitha ma'am was my inspiration. I came into politics and there was that's what my entry into politics meant. And now I'm making documentaries. I'm back in my journalism career. I'm not really interested. She said, no, I'll fly you down to Delhi. Why don't you just meet Rahul Gandhi for, a couple of minutes? When I went there, we had a 45-minute long conversation. And I told him, sir, I don't want to be typecast as LGBT. As a tax-paying, educated citizen, I want a mainstream role. If you're able to afford me the mainstream role, I'm willing to take it up. And he appointed me as the National General Secretary for the All India Mahila Congress. So I headed their women's wing for a brief while, till AIDMK sorted itself out. And I campaigned in the 2019 elections in about 25 states, and every candidate I campaigned for won the elections. So I came back on the invitation of Mr. Edappadi Palanichami. I came back to Tamil Nadu. He was the serving chief minister. He said, you're going to Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, Telangana and working. Your home is here, you belong to our party, why don't you come back? What are you doing in the Congress? So I came back to the AIDMK, and when I was back in the AIDMK, I got an invitation from the European Parliament. They were doing a conference in Madrid, and they wanted somebody to speak about human rights and LGBT policy in India. And everybody threw the most nasty questions at me. Oh, in your country, cows, you drink cow urine, and you do all kinds of stuff, and trans women, those festivals that we have. So I had to break it down to them, saying that India, in its DNA, has acceptance and tolerance. I wouldn't be here if not for India. So I don't think we should always talk down about our country. I faced a lot of criticism and discrimination, but never really, people don't take it as far as violence. I know a lot of trans sisters face violence, but I think innately in our gene, there's some amount of curiosity and acceptance and compassion and kindness. And I'm really thankful I chose to live out my life and continue to live my life in India. And that's how politics is a great platform for me to continue doing the work that I do.
Super. Okay, Parmesh, I'm going to ask you to read out a short passage about how you have tried to change these perceptions of gender inequality from Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah, but before that, can I build on what Apsara said about
Yeah, sure.
the tea stall concept and everything? It's so vital and it's so pertinent because Apsara is doing this change through politics, and which can create again incredible opportunities in terms of jobs, skilling. That leads to dignity. That leads to societal acceptance and all. Right? People don't understand that through politics you can change policies, which can literally affect like hundreds and thousands and lakhs of people in a way that you can't in so many other spaces as well. So I'm so grateful, Apsara. Your journey is certainly not over in politics, and I want to see you personally as chief minister, home minister, all of these things as you grow ahead. And you have many, many people who will be rooting for you and supporting in this journey as well. Just to build on something that you said, it's very interesting now that, there are various, so there are, again, since we're in Tamil Nadu, the company I work for, Godrej Consumer, recently did an MOU with the Chief Minister to do a new factory in TN. And it was a big factory, it involves a lot of money, and it committed, and the chief minister was very, very excited that we will hire 50% of the employees in this factory will be women, 5% trans, and 5% people with disabilities. And the government was so receptive and excited that they said, let's work together and make this a model for others. So through politics, we can actually bring about change in infrastructure that will then, now all these people who are employed in this, right, will draw salaries, will lead a life of dignity, will help in changing perceptions as well. So a lot of people say, what do we do? There are various interesting solutions that are coming out, certainly through the laws, certainly through our films, and certainly through the content, but also on the ground in these intersections of politics, policy, business, activism, and so on. And that's what I'm super excited about at this moment as we grow ahead. Just some numbers for you so that, again, just building on what you said, when you reach out to LGBTQ people and when you engage with us, with our lives and on us, honestly, as Apsara said, you're doing it for your own selves. So the global LGBTQ economy is worth $5 trillion. In India as well, conservative estimates say that the LGBTQ economy in India is worth $250 billion with a B, right? If someone is good at math, you can multiply that by 83.4 or whatever and understand what it is in rupees. It's tons of rupees. So if you're engaging with us, again, you're not doing it as benevolence or charity. You're engaging with us when these parties are engaging with Apsara. They want Apsara's mind. They want Apsara's innovative approach. They want Apsara's networks. They're doing it ultimately because it benefits them much more than it benefits you as well. So for anyone who's thinking of engaging with our communities, please do it from...
I also want to add something to this while we're talking on this political part. I think even there's a message to LGBT communities as well that what politicians care about is a crass calculation of vote bank. Unless you stick together, band together, within micro-communities, have no divisiveness, and stick together as a strong vote bank, only then will parties take us seriously.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. But from that to business, again, in the workplace as well, there's some very exciting stuff happening in workplaces, in these spaces. So if any of you are interested, please go look at some of this. Take your well-meaning intent into action. Those of you who are from the region, look at what organizations you can support. Those of you who have enterprises that you run, if you feel good after this session and say, wow, this is amazing, please give jobs to our community people and so on. So please convert your intent into action. Otherwise, really, what's the point as well, right? So I don't know how much time we have, but to read out an excerpt.
You can quickly probably read out an excerpt.
So there's an excerpt in the beginning of this revised edition of Queeristan, which, I wrote the book in the years preceding COVID. It was finished in COVID, and then it did very well, and we came out with another edition. And so this is a bit which is in the revised forward of it, where I talk about the daily hope and despair I face in kind of doing the work I do, right? So it's just, you can tell me when to stop because it's like about 2 pages long. Yeah. So there are days when I am a lot more irritable than I was in 2020. If I revisit this book on those days, I'm struck by how sweet it sounds or how naive and optimistic I was on those days. There are other days, like say when I see trans actor Trinetra Haldar Gomaraju, who also happens to be Karnataka's first out and proud trans doctor, playing a trans character on the web series Made in Heaven, or when I go and see a queer positive film like Chandigarh Kare Ashiki or Badai Do in a crowded cinema hall, and actually the cinema hall bursts into applause at the end, I'm filled with optimism as well, right? And it's nice to see how all of this has changed as well. There were times when people would like laugh and make jokes, now people clap alongside, right? But for every new Garima Greh transgender shelter home that opens, or a trans person like Dr. Aksa Sheikh, who's appointed to a position of power, she headed a major COVID vaccine center during the pandemic as well, right? So Aksa, Apsara and all, there are incredible trans activists who are celebrities who are doing amazing work as well, right? Or for every exuberant queer pride prom that I attend in Mumbai in July 2002, organized with the students of SIS College, I hear of students ending their own life. Like the 10th standard Delhi public school student, R.V. Malhotra, who died by suicide after being bullied by other students and whose mother, a teacher in the same school, filed a complaint. and, and she alleges inaction by the school authorities as well. In July 2022, I was shaken by two back-to-back stories, both from Pune. On 15 July, a 19-year-old trans woman went to a restaurant, was wrongly accused of dropping a glass, chased out of the restaurant by the owner. He then followed her, pulled her hair, and threw her off a bridge, which led to her falling a distance of 15 feet and breaking her legs. No one came to her assistance. On 24 July, the owners and staff of a restaurant violently attacked and killed a gay patron, Abhay Gondane, who ironically was attending an LGBTQ party at that venue as well. No one came to his help either. But again, ironically, in the same month, I received an invitation to speak at the Shankar Rao Chavan Law College, also in Pune. They are conducting a certificate course on law and alternative sexualities for their students, one of the first programs of its kind in the country as well. Hope and despair. It's becoming really, really hard to cope with this frequent yo-yoing. So there's a lot more in this. I'm just going to go towards the end of this bit. Yeah, it's just this para. I now try very hard each time I feel a little low to purposely swing back my mood back to a feeling of gratitude. Gratitude for the fact that come what may, slowly but surely this world of inclusion that I've tried to outline in this book continues to take shape, colored vividly by the work of the next-gen queers whose work I admire so much and who you will read about. Gratitude for schools like Jamnabai Narsi that I describe in the beginning of this chapter, or South City International School in Kolkata, which has an active LGBTQI club run with the full support of principals, teachers, parents, and so on. Colleges like this, which and many other educational institutions, which are having, trans-inclusive hostels and spreading the message of inclusion. And gratitude for parents, teachers, workplaces, bosses, politicians, government officials, and others who are steadfastly working together to co-create a more LGBTQIA plus friendly India, which I've affectionately called Queeristan.
Thank you, Parmesh. Apsara, if you can read us.
I haven't written a book yet, but there are lots of places I've written about stuff. So on the Sustainable Development Goals, I wrote an article in the Forbes magazine, Forbes International. So I'll read a couple of excerpts from that on the recommendations I made that, as part of Sustainable Development Goals, how trans women can be included. We must go beyond representation, tokenistic representation, to advocate for trans women participation and influence in decision-making in all spheres and at all levels, from the household to the boardroom. Trans women and trans children cannot be taglines in Sustainable Development Goals or a tokenistic document or party manifestos. Extending quotas for trans women in leadership in rural areas, such as elevating them in tribal and disadvantaged communities to leadership roles in their own space. Trans women must be nominated to higher positions in government boards and commissions that often legislate or decide on trans women welfare and schemes. Political appointees or uniformed officers or biased bureaucrats should not be solely responsible for legislating or creating policy on our lives, because even the censor board doesn't have a trans representative when we have so much of misrepresentation in mass media about the trans community. A compulsory gender sensitization to all first responders and points of contact in government, law and public service, and officers at all levels, as well as in airports, and even within communities, to have mentors to usher in the next generation of trans people to kind of not overdose on hormones, not overdo the plastic surgery, and to live meaningful lives. Ideas such as gender champion projects should move beyond paper and targets and become a call to action to the torchbearers of the future. Gender justice is a human right. Everyone across the gender spectrum, woman, man, LGBTIQA++, is entitled to live a life of dignity and in freedom and without fear and in harmony together. The other thing that I wrote about was no one makes it anywhere in life with just charity, and definitely no one finds happiness with just sympathy and emotion. The real deal is, are you game to talk about employment, equal opportunity to housing, and education? No policy or legislation is ever executed fairly. When transgender women get thrown out of their home, they live on the streets. They're uneducated, and no college or school will admit them, not even the government colleges or schools. The few that make it do it due to connections. And to transform from one gender to another, they need medical subsidies, zero available in this country. And no, they don't need your free ration or your old clothes. They deserve equal in every sphere and every subsidy. how then do they handle their hunger, shelter, and the inner desire to convincingly be a gender of their choice? The point is, in a country where people talk of punyam, punaskaram, and puja, we are so geared towards assuming the worst in others that heaviness of judgment and prejudice is evident everywhere. Torch it, and please be tempted to engage, empower, and enrich.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I can see the floor brimming with questions and comments. So we're going to throw the session open for questions, please.
To both of you. Parmesh, you've been talking about what sounds to me change through structure and not revolution in the workplace and everywhere else. This is a lot of companies and organizations do try and support and be as inclusive as they can, but there is a lot of tokenism that comes with it, things that look good on LinkedIn, initiatives that may look good on LinkedIn, and that's the only or primary motivation. So have you faced something like this where, your workplace did something for as tokenism, and how did you navigate it? And how do you even differentiate whether it's tokenism or this is something that they genuinely want to work towards?
So thank you for that question. I'm going to give you a copy of this book for it because it was deep and meaningful. Not at my workplace, but there's an entire chapter in this book called No Token Rain. The title of the chapter, you don't have to read the chapter because title is enough. The title says, No Token Rainbows. We want your jobs, not your Instagram filters. There, you know what the chapter is about. You don't have to read like 30, 40 pages. There are many companies that do performative activism, pink washing, rainbow washing, and so on. And the thing is, in the community, we know about it. So we know the companies are posting things online or pretending to, support LGBTQ rights and making ads when they don't have policies for their own employees. We laugh at them. We will privately joke about them. We will go on their Instagram or their LinkedIn post and say, lol, why are you saying all this when you don't even offer benefits to your employees? In today's world, it's very hard to hide these truths as well. So organizations, people, whatever, if you care about something, walk the talk. Otherwise, don't walk. It's better to not do anything than to do, half-hearted or fake things just for this, because you're going to get, people will come to know and they will actually, urge you to be better and so on. So what was your other bit of the question? This was only it, right? Yeah, so thank you. There are also companies who are doing the structure. So in structure, the way I recommend is to people, there are frameworks that I've used. One is Jugaad resistance, where I say that, change can come about through the law, certainly through courts and so on. And we've had a series of judgments, 2014 NALSA, right to privacy, 2017, 2018, 377, 2019, a very flawed Trans Act, and so on. So there are many judgments which have come through courts. But we all have to do Jugaad resistance by being change agents, by saying wherever we are located, whatever is our sphere of influence, how can we bring about a change? And it is these micro revolutions of change rather than a macro revolution that I'm concerned about. If each of us in our own sphere of influence can say, what can we do? Then these micro revolutions add up and you see systems and structures changing. So that is my recommendation to people. Take a look at yourselves. What can I do? And then do it.
Good afternoon. The Oxford Dictionary, I think, describes the word queer as strange and unusual. And then today I heard a new word, you said Queeristan, right?
That's his book.
I think, yes, that's the title of your book. I think, this is my personal humble opinion, that we're looking at acceptance, we're looking at it being normal, right? So maybe we should just drop the word in the first place.
Can I answer that?
Yeah, and one more thing.
I just want to say something.
Let's do one
more
question
point.
per person.
No, it's not a question.
No,
It's not a question.
my observation is, I don't think strange and unusual is abnormal. First of all, what is normal to you might not be normal to me. So I think it's about coexistence. And I think queer is a word which the community enjoys and celebrates. I think you guys should get on board.
All right, so then accept it. Accept it.
Can I just add to that?
Accept it.
No, can I just say, I don't like this word normal. I think that we should remove the word normal and what we call normal, we should call queer.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
And very quickly, since the policymakers are not very conducive to helping with the community, I feel the big business houses must make an effort by giving employment. I have a lot of friends back home in Nagpur who really say that, we can work in metro offices, we can work in various parlors, but we don't get the jobs. So I think the big business houses must make an effort and give them employment.
And invest in skilling and vocational programs. Only then, right?
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
You can just ask a question like that, I think. There are two questions here.
Parmesh, what are your views on the current petition going on in the Supreme Court, which is asking for gay people
marriage
to be allowed
equality.
to be
You want to-
marriage
you wanna go first
equality
and then
petition? And also, why I'm asking is that to hear from you why this is important for the gay community.
See, I have no legal opinion on it, but I feel every kind of love should be celebrated. No love should be silenced. Every kind of love must find a meaningful place in the world. And I think it's very sad that even in this day and age, we're looking to the courts and government to legislate for two simple individuals to express love and live together.
Thank you. I have strong legal opinions on this also,
I'll
so I'm
leave that
going to
to you.
add to that. See, I'm also Sindhi. So, yeah, I don't know if you know. So, Sindhis, Saz is here who's asking, that's why I remembered I'm Sindhi. So, this means I'm little conjuice and like money-minded. So, I'm very sorry, that's a stereotype, I know, oops. But, so, I'm an honest, tax-paying, patriotic citizen of my country. So, my thing is, I'm performing my duties of citizenship. Why the hell shouldn't I have all the rights? Now, if you're saying you're not giving me marriage equality, if you say you pay half income tax and then that's, I'm ready to take half my rights if you're allowing me to not do half my responsibilities. But boss, you're making me do my full responsibilities, then why shouldn't I get all the rights? No, it's like, this is my little Sindhi trader mindset. So, yeah, but on a more serious note, constitutionally, we have an incredible constitution that Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar gave us, which enshrines all these rights for us. We have all these rights already. Historically, as we've said, there is a dearth of research that says that Indian society, through hundreds and thousands of years, has been inclusive to all kinds of queer relationships, including queer unions of various kinds as well. So what the court does, and I hope, is recognize that by granting these rights in this case, we are merely following the rich and diverse cultural traditions of our country and respecting the constitution in which we are already guaranteed the rights. I am extremely hopeful that we will get the same rights because I would very much want to marry my husband, and then hopefully we will do gay divorce also. So I think queer marriage will be so much money, the economy will certainly go up 1-2%. All the wedding designers, all the tent makers, you may not have a venue for the festival because all the queers will be booking this for their Sangeet. And then think about after all that, all the divorce lawyers. So I think it's going to be a great economic boost of at least 3-4% off the top of my head. Yeah.
Hi. On the floor here, Apsara, what is your opinion on examples of trans people wanting to compete in women's professional sport, in which clearly women, in apostrophe, would not stand a chance of competing fairly, as Richard Harris, cyclist from Canada? And does such activism bring the cause a bad name?
I don't think it brings the cause a bad name. I think every citizen of this country deserves a chance at sport on every sphere, even in the global sphere, even in the Olympics. I feel if we set parameters of the prerequisites of what it entails to enlist yourself in that sport, and we have parameters to judge it, I don't think we should compare women to trans women in that sphere, especially because of the hormonal changes and differences. I feel if there's a separate category that's introduced, I think trans individuals should be allowed to compete without anybody feeling slighted.
Yeah. No, I won't add to that. Let's take some more questions.
I have a few
Saz had
questions
one
here
there.
as well.
A question for Apsara. You said how you felt like a woman. So I was wondering if you can just share with us, what did that mean to you then? What did it feel like being, what was it like?
I always
and
thought-
I also wanted to know whether that feeling has transformed, over the years. feeling transformed. You know, I'm a woman, so
I
what
think
does
that's
that
the
mean?
best decision I've made in my life. It's the most liberating and the most freedom-giving decision I've made in my life. I felt like a woman because I felt wrong in the male body. I always wanted to be a girl. I always felt like a girl. As I said earlier, emotionally and mentally and physically, I felt like a woman. So I didn't understand the concept of, being gay for the longest time. It took me a lot of reading up and meeting gay individuals, queer people, to understand that I really wanted to be fully, biologically, 100% a woman, emotionally, mentally, in every stakeholder of my life, be it family, be it my life partner, be it my employers, the emotions with which I deal with each of these, I felt completely like a woman.
Thanks. And there's one more question here from the floor. Are we talking about LGBTQ++ in schools so that children at a young age are introduced to this and thus grow up in a world without bias? Apsara, would you like to
Yesterday
speak
I
about
had-
your experience yesterday?
Yesterday, I addressed a group of 300 children, and when I first walked into the room, of course, they didn't know what to expect. They were a little firm, they were not opening up, they were chattering amongst themselves. But when I started to speak and when I finished, I think Sangeeta, if she wasn't there yesterday, I wouldn't have been here today because they didn't let me leave. They were giving me hugs, they wanted autographs, they had so many questions, so many individuals, so many children who were confused about their identity, gender identity, sexuality, some who were facing abuse from their parents, some who are facing inexplicable bullying from their schools. So I think we need to empower our children to think freely, think sustainably, and think also in a way that secures their future as citizens of this country. And I think I must thank the organizers of OLF. Yesterday I did the English-speaking students. Today I'm interacting with the Tamil-speaking students. And trust me, I learned so much from the kids because the kind of questions they had, the kind of reading they had done, it was amazing. And I think children are very ready to accept anything as long as it's not thrusted on them. I think it needs to be with some amount of reasonable conversation, and I think it's important to have that dialogue.
Yeah, if I can just add to that, in the past few months, I've been doing amazing talks that we haven't done in so many years, and the demand has come from schools. So there's schools across India in which the students are telling the teachers that you don't know how to use pronouns, please get some experts. So I've done talks in schools where the children have organized sessions so that the teachers, principal, vice principal, and the trustees can sit in a line and learn and understand. And in front of us, the children have forced the trustees to commit to all gender washrooms, hiring trans people, and all of that, right? So for anyone here who's maybe not so young, your only role is to educate yourself and step out of the way because next generation is ready. So yeah.
Any other questions? I have a couple of questions which are a little illegible. If you want to address it from the floor, please go ahead and do it. I'm just not able to read it.
One question. You can take it offline, I think. No, we're out of time.
Yeah, we'll check it offline.
The question about queer literature. Apsara said, buy Parmesh's book.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I'm featured in his book as well.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen,
Yes, with
for
that-
these two flag bearers of the community, and a standing ovation for both of them for having done such a brilliant job.
Thank you very much, Radhika and Apsara and Parmesh. And I would like to request Parmesh.
I want to thank Radhika.
Yes.
For whenever they're moderators, sometimes they don't do their research properly and they ask the most inappropriate questions. You are so sensitive and kind, and thank you for being you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Parmesh.